Hey, welcome to this quick little video. It is very, very important for you guys to understand, again, how we got here, what's going on, because there's so much misleading information out there with regards to this topic here. So before I waste any more time, let's get into this. August 16th of 2022, Congress passed legislation. That legislation was to electrify the American grid. Okay? So we're now moving into a whole different frontier. When Congress passes a legislation, they have to create the funding for it, and that funding trickles down to the consumer. In this case, it's you as a business owner. Okay? Now, if we unpack this, August 16, 2022, Congress passed legislation. They did not ask your permission. They didn't ask your opinion of it. The first thing you have to understand is this bill was passed bipartisan. Both Republican and Democrat wrote this into law, so it's not going to matter what happens in the next election. This bill funded the early 2000 Energy Act. Okay? Now, let's come over here. Congress, through force, has now put green mandates on every single energy provider in the United States. For you and I, it's ComEd. ComEd is under green mandates. By 2025, they must be at 30% green energy. Today, we're about 4 to 5%. And in 2035, that's hit 70%. So if you just look at, I can make a video just on this one by itself. The only way that this takes place, because ComEd doesn't make green energy, is through the participation. And so whatever the bill is on your billing in your home, it will absolutely minimally triple to quadruple, because we're only at 4% right now and we need to get 30%. So ComEd is going to get your attention very quickly. Matter of fact, they're even marketing for it. Even if you go to ComEd.com, you'll see solar on ComEd's website with regards to it. This is huge to understand what's about to happen and how that's going to impact profitability in every business. Let's look at the money. $500 billion was put into escrow from Congress. $500 billion. Now, how does Congress get money to the people? Right? You know, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, that is government-backed agencies in order to release money for home mortgages. August 16, 2022, the third lender got created. That lender is called PACE. Stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. Now, there's a handful of lenders within PACE that actually distribute that money. This is critical. Let's go back what's happening today to us as people. Today, if I were to build a brand new home as a builder, that home has to have a minimum 400 amp service. Why? Because everything is going electric. That's just on a 2,000 square foot home. Commercial, multifamily. You're pulling a permit, any permit that's pulled. If I'm pulling a permit for multifamily, that parking lot, 5% has to be EV ready. So already the law has been written. These are live building codes that are in act right now. And so what's interesting is this, we go back in time, this already happened once. So history is beginning to repeat itself, because in 1956, the Highway Act was passed. That's where Congress put into a ton of money in creating roads, the infrastructure to go from Chicago to California and everywhere else. Otherwise, it took 3 to 4 weeks to do that. It's faster to go by horse and carriage. We're human. We hate change. I don't know why. We hate change. And so that created an uproar. And so you had protests happening. High-speed highways, not the answer. Superhighway, super hoax. People before highways. This created a lot of chaos and stress. But yet, lo and behold, we made it through. Thank God for the human people. And we benefit from the highway system today. But the interesting thing, the number one, the most critical element of that highway system was not the highway itself, wasn't the concrete, wasn't the asphalt, wasn't the bridges. It was a gas station. Understand that the federal government had to fund every 60 miles a gas station, because that's the only way that the consumers in the trucks could go from point A to point B. So interesting, because this just happened. January of this year, it got really cold, and we're in this world where there's all these EVs. And guess what? They're all stranded at O'Hare, weren't they? And you may have experienced this personally. Already, April 1st, 2024. Here's the new laws already adopted. 0401-2024, 765IL electric vehicle. All building permits issued 90 days after the effective date, April 1st, 2024, shall require 100%, I'm going to read that again, 100% of its total parking spaces EV capable, meaning all the wiring, all the conduit, the sizing, the transformers have to be roughed in. Conversely, on the flip side of that, I mentioned earlier, 5% of the parking has to be EV ready. Meaning, here you go, you got the pedestals on there. The funding comes from the federal, state, and utilities. This is how simple this is. The money just comes from the federal, state, and utilities. And there's only two different ways that you as a consumer, as a building owner, can participate. Whether it's your home or a building. It's through home ownership or it's through a PPA lease. No different, okay? And it all stems from a utility bill. And that gives all the engineering from that. The biggest hurdle and that we got is going, okay, does it really work? And so when you actually kind of pay attention and go, oh, wait a minute, satellites are powered by solar, and there's tens of thousands in outer space, and they cost $1 quadrillion to put them in outer space, and they stay in outer space forever, right? If it was cheap and inexpensive, not a big deal, but they cost tens of millions of dollars to do so. So the same space age technology that's in outer space is going on top of the building and on top of the houses. So to answer it, yes, they work and they're incredibly effective. Design overview. Now, let's look at a simple building. Here you go. Pretty large system, 627 kW. That's a large system. I'm not even using the entire surface of the roof. There's already setbacks, everything from a code standpoint. This is a beautiful setup. The cost of this, let's just look at the money. I'll call it 1.4. It's under 1.372806. $1.4 million for that system. Now, look what happens. Number one, the money comes from the federal government. Number two, watch what happens. The tax incentives alone, the federal ITC is 30% of the tax credit. That's $412,000. Right to you, bottom line. Now you access federal and state accelerated solar depreciation. Those two alone are valid over $600,000 for this client. The direct pays. Yes, direct pays. ComEd writes you a check for $116,770. Now you understand why ComEd pays, because it's cheaper to pay that, and they're motivated to do that. The SRECs, which used to be called the carbon credits, this is now a solar renewable energy certificate, $629,000. All administered for a total of almost $750,000. When you look at the total system cost and the incentive cost, it's crazy. What you're seeing is pretty typical on everything else. And I didn't even get into if you need a roof, because a roof could get added to this equation. Let's look at the energy savings for this client. They spend a lot of money, almost $110,000 a year, right? And now that's just compounding, and that's just a bill that's no one's paying attention to because it's on auto pay for the most part. And so this becomes part of the savings. Now, when you add everything together with regards to what the federal, state utility, and the fact that you're no longer paying a bill, this client on year one, we trademarked it. A solar bank account is $992,519. All coming right back to that client. Year two, it doesn't stop. There's another $252,000, $253,000. Year three doesn't stop. So these SRECs get paid out over a 7-year period and creating a cash flow. Yeah, I guarantee there's hesitation, and this doesn't make sense, and it's too good to be true, and I agree with it. But that's why we put this together, so you understand why this is taking place. Because the federal government is extremely motivated and is going to help you participate in this transaction, or not transaction, but in the transformation of solar energy. The environmental impact, right? The ESG, right? Again, it comes down to here. With the gallons of gasoline consumed that you're saving, light bulbs, barrels of oil, and again, even planting trees. This is what we do from a commercial standpoint. We specialize in this. If you have any interest Any questions whatsoever, I highly recommend. You could text, even if you just want to, throw a text out there quickly or yell at us, all good to go. Shoot a text, shoot an email. Carl works specifically with everyone in the commercial division, especially as a commercial background in real estate. So he's the person to talk to. A little bit about us, right? We're Greenlight Group. We service multiple divisions in solar, roofing, and construction. We're also a federal contractor for the United States government, which again is actually getting solar as well. So we'd love to be able to just walk you through your specific case scenario. It doesn't cost anything to do so, but there is some motivation behind it. So we hope that you find this interesting, and we absolutely look forward to helping you guys on the other side. Thanks so much.